Hey, welcome back to No Hype Beer Reviews. Unless it's your first time, then welcome. Please consider subscribing. If you do, hit the notification bell, get all your updates. Really excited for today's video. Actually, I'm not at all. I am just so used to saying that. I am not excited for today's video. I am dreading this video very much. I have been dreading this beer for 6 years. Well, almost 6 years. This October, it'll be 6 years. I hate this beer. I hate this beer so much. This beer and Founder's Lizard of Kaz are probably the two worst beers I've ever had in my entire life. I bought 2 bottles when this came out, one to drink fresh, one to age, and drank the one fresh, and it was awful. I mean, it was awful beer, awful, bad, not good. Just what were you thinking releasing it, kind of a thing. It was so bad. So this is their 20th anniversary Higher Math, a golden ale brewed with chocolate and sour cherry juice, 17% ABV. Celebrating 20 off-centered years with our luscious chocolate cherry birthday cake in liquid form. Okay, sounds good so far. Maybe would have made more sense to be a stout than a golden ale. I love Dogfish Head. If you don't know that about me, I love their stuff a lot. I love their brewery. I love going to their brewery. Huge fan of their stuff. I've said this before on the channel. I had done two or three, I think 2 tours of Dogfish Head. 2 tours of the brewery and then 1 of the distillery. But I think the distillery is part of the tour of the brewery. Anyway, one of those tours, the tour guide said, "You're probably not going to like every beer we make, and that's okay. That'd be weird if you did." And I was like, man, that is so true. People's tastes are different. What they're in the mood for, varies. Like, there's so many factors. People might love this beer, right? I just hate this beer. But I was hoping if I aged it, maybe it would meld and turn into something delicious. Only one way to find out. I have proper glassware, so it should taste better. For that reason. Oh, man. They're calling it a golden ale. So I guess the color makes sense because of the cherry juice and chocolate added. It's a light brown in the center, a lot of red on the outside. I hope what you're seeing is what I'm seeing. Almost exactly a finger of this. It's like tan. It's khaki. Duh, that's khaki. It's like if you bought khaki pants and they were a little darker than what khaki is, that's what that color is. The bubbles are not compact, but not quite like sudsy, soapy. Somewhere in the middle. But yeah, no, I mean, it looks like a beer. I don't know, whatever. It's gonna say aroma. Okay, I'm not mad at the smell. I'll say that actually smells pretty good. There's a nice sweetness that's balancing out the cherry tart, like sour cherry thing, or whatever direction that's going. The sweetness is balancing that out, or the cherry is balancing out the sweetness, or that's the same thing, and I'm spending too much time on it. It's weird getting that kiss of chocolate in a beer like this because I'm not getting the roast that I usually get because it's usually in a stout. So that's kind of a trip. It's like there's this very familiar cherry. And you know what? The cherry reminds me actually of like these raspberry candies my mom used to get around Christmas time that had raspberry jam in the center. So kind of like there is, again, going back to that sweetness thing, it is somewhat confectionery what all these things are doing together in terms of the cherry. But anyway, mixed in with that is this chocolate with no roast. And it's just such a trip because when was the last time I smelled chocolate without roast also attached? It's weird. Like, I think if I was doing this blind, I wouldn't even pick up the chocolate, because I would be expecting that roast oomph behind it, Like, it doesn't smell like coffee, like at all, but it does have that, just a little bit of chocolate. But not chocolate-covered cherries, which just dawned on me like, oh yeah, it doesn't have that thing. And yeah, it's more that like I said, raspberry, but like a cherry candy, and not cherry medicinal. And I think one reason they didn't like this beer fresh was because it had like a super medicinal thing. So I know I'm not saying, I'm like taking a long time to explain the aroma. And when I think back to what I just said, it seems like I could have said it really quickly. A sweet cherry element and a kiss of chocolate, but like that would also not be accurate, or not fully accurate. But that really is all I'm getting, but it's in these ways and not in other ways that I think it was worth spending that time on. But let's see about the taste. Cheers. And again, like I'm not excited about this at all, but the aroma is good, so maybe it will be all right. Okay. All right. It is better than I'm remembering. I do think some time has helped cool this beer down, calm this beer down, maybe. A lot of warmth. That first sip, I didn't get any alcohol in the taste, which is pretty impressive for 17%. It's very syrupy, and it does have some of that medicinal cherry thing on the actual taste. So, at least first sip, that's not killing it for me, but it is preventing me from liking, like, there's this initial promise when I first take a sip that's pleasant, and the promise is this is going to be good. But then there is enough of the medicinal cherry note that's like, or is it going to be good? And then, this is just first sip, and maybe I should have chilled this. This is right on, Cellar. I don't know if I even said that. Today's Saturday, and I'm doing my Cellar Saturday series, and I did literally just pull it off the shelf. So it's just cellar temperature. In hindsight, or time machine, more accurate, I would have chilled this quite a bit. But at room temperature, at cellar temperature, there was a lot of warmth. I'm wondering if I'll get used to it, or if it'll compound and it'll turn into more of a burn than a warmth. I get some... I mean, they're calling it a triple. It's funny, with that little cherry and chocolate, it's almost smelling like a double, like a Belgian double, which is interesting. Because you can get those fruity elements like a cherry. I like it when quads have plums, and I do think doubles and quads, like in some ways, doubles are like little versions of quads, or quads are like big versions of doubles. And you can get some nice plum, but you can also get cherry. Three Philosophers adds that cherry lambic, So like, it works. So yeah, it does have. I didn't even think about that. It actually, because of the adjuncts, the additions, it actually has a little bit more of like a double quad kind of a thing than a triple. So yeah, up front, again, that promise, it has an awesome level of sweetness, and again, this like syrupy, sticky sweetness. You get that sweet cherry. There's not a lot of chocolate, just like the aroma. It's just like a dusting. I wouldn't do this, but like if you put out some cherries and like sprinkled some chocolate powder, like cacao chocolate powder on top, it's kind of like very little bit on top instead of like confectionery sugar or something. It kind of, I think what that would taste like with a very sweet, then maybe you're sipping on a sweet cordial of some kind. Probably like a cherry cordial would make the most sense. And it does have that element. One of the things I noticed with that sip is actually how long I was enjoying it until the medicinal thing kicked in. And again, I don't want to say it's killing it for me, but it is putting a huge damper on it. There's a huge wet blanket put on the drinking experience when that kicks in. But I'm talking like, I don't know, the first 80% of the sip is actually, like, of the experience as a whole, is enjoyable, which is good. Like, that's a good thing. Again, this was probably tied for my least favorite beer I've ever had. And I'm sure those like crappy little brewery beers I've had that were worse, but like ones I can remember from reputable breweries. But this age has done this well, but it has still not performed magic and turned it into a 100% delicious beer. But it is leaps and bounds better than it was fresh. You must get like a little sweet cinnamon on there. It's like definitely cinnamon bark. It's not apple, cranberry. It's cranberry. That cherry and everything else that's mixing together, like I was saying about the aroma with the raspberry, there's, like a little bit of like this cranberry thing. That's interesting. Pomegranates, 2 pomegranate seeds. That chocolate is asserting itself a little bit more. It's still not roasty, obviously, but there is, this aftertaste is interesting. And that chocolate that's like lingering is giving the lowest possible note of like, or is there roast in this? You know, it's a trip. This beer, if nothing else, is a trip. If nothing else, it showed that, you know, I've mostly had success with aging beers. Some definitely have not done anything. Some have stayed the same in terms of enjoyment. Some have gotten worse, but mostly they're either the same or better. Again, this one is better. So this was, again, a situation where I had 2. Knew I didn't like it fresh, but at 17%, it would definitely age. I gave it a shot, and it is better than it was fresh. I think that's a huge win. But the beer is still not perfect. Not that things have to be perfect, but the beer is still not where I'd want it to be because of that medicinal cherry. It's just a little too much for me. And maybe it's the juice, like they add that juice versus real cherries or something. I don't know. The brewing process of this is interesting to me. Have you had this beer before? I'm super curious if you've had this beer before, what you think about it. But if you haven't, I would also love to hear what's your least favorite beer. You know, how it's drinking now, it would not be at the very bottom, like not the last place that I can remember, but it's certainly down towards the bottom. But anyway, super curious, or just a bad beer you've had, or if you don't feel comfortable, you know, saying the name of the brewery or the beer, just maybe give your experience with it, whatever, anything, everything, comment section below. Once you're done doing that, make sure you check me out on Instagram and Untapped. It's No Hype Beer Reviews at both of those places. So please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, imbibe. Cheers, everyone.